I would think in terms of plants, of pets, that you would want to do something similar. You would want to make sure that you have extra supplies, perhaps for the pets, somewhere near your emergency kit. And then if there are any special medications that pets are on, you would want to hold those the same way. Pets have, they're likely to be even more nervous than people in a situation like this. So to the extent that you have a house pet that you can get hold of and hang on to during the event itself, I think that's probably a good idea. I don't know that that's always possible.
Right.
And I think animals are generally pretty sensitive and smart about what to do to protect themselves.
I agree. And I think they even know it before
They probably
comes.
do automatically go under it, because I think about, I had a dog, an Australian Shepherd and Lab, and whenever there was like a windstorm, she would go into the closet.
Yeah.
Which was very safe. It was like a den. And actually, that would be a very safe place to go if you were in an earthquake, and that's where she'd always go and sort of hide underneath the clothes.
Really?
So that would be, that piece of advice would be follow your pet.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I don't know that would work with goldfish, but I think there's a real point there.
Right, right.
The other thing is that most cities now offer kits to help neighborhoods get organized, so that they can gather basic information on people who live in their area.
Right.
They can identify any people with special needs in the neighborhood, and in some cases then they make plans for where people will meet, how communications will be done. I know certainly during the windstorm a couple of winters ago, when part of our neighborhood lost power and the other part had power, we were all glad that we had an organization like that, and many of us who had power just opened our refrigerators and freezers to people who had lost power so that they could save food and come and get warm and have meals and things like that. And so, society is a strange thing these days. Sometimes people don't have a clue about the names of the people or the needs of the people who live near them. But to the extent that's possible, I think that's really it's a free and easy thing to do.
No, that sounds really good. A lot of the neighborhoods today, they have the homeowners associations,
right.
Which then, they've actually got, like, I have a list of every single neighbor and their phone number.
And
so we
that's
have that.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good. And in our neighborhood, we know where the elderly people are, the people who might need assistance getting in and out of their house, or the people that we'd worry about for one reason or another. So that makes a big difference. And then I guess the last piece is for businesses, especially for small businesses, it's very difficult, I think, in the midst of running a business and taking care of all that implies, to think about how you would protect your employees or how you would keep your operations going when actually you may not have power, you may have structural damages to your facilities. You could have security issues as well. So that's something that my company does. I don't really do work for individuals unless they're CEOs. That's a kind of risk detection I do. But I think that looking to see if programs that corporations and larger companies have put into place to see if they're adequate to protect employees and to keep operations going, that's something that I do. And I got the nickname Detective Annie because mostly what I do in my business is look for holes or gaps in people's plans. It could be for planning for earthquakes. It could be for security breaches or other kinds of things. But looking for holes and then building a roadmap for companies so that they can put a better plan together and close those holes.
Wow.
Well, I want to know something. If you're in a high-rise, Annie, of course you don't use the elevator, but how soon should you go into the stairwell? Well, I think the advice still remains that you stay in your apartment or your condo. You go to an inside wall. If you're told to evacuate, and you'll know because most high-rises have PA systems in them that work.
and they're designed to work. They have emergency power and everything else. You'll be instructed to move into a stairwell if that's what you should do.
So stay put. Same with businesses that are in
high
Seattle.
rises.
I mean, how many floors are some of those businesses?
Well, we rehearsed that. I was at Washington Mutual for 10 years, and I headed their program. And there's a federal law that requires anyone that has employees in buildings that are high rises to actually run drills on how people get out of buildings and under what conditions. And so you literally get an evacuation notice, you're taught how many floors to go down and hold or to go all the way down. And it's a very logical and rational way of moving people out of a building safely.
Well, Annie, our show is winding up, so what do you want to leave our listeners with?
I think you should think about preparing for an earthquake sort of in the same context of doing spring cleaning. It's a set of things you put on a checklist, and you feel a lot better once it's done.
That's true.
And it will last longer than until fall. Most of these kits that you can buy are good for 5 years. So it's worth the investment.
Annie, how do they get a hold of you if they're listening and they want to have their company evaluated?
So www.anniesearle, just one word, .com.
And it's SEARLE.
And ANNIE. Absolutely.
Go to our website. Annie is listed on today's date, and you can click on it, and it'll take you right to her. Well, thank you, Annie. We're going to do spring cleaning this weekend and be prepared.
Great. I'm glad to hear it.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
We'll have to go back to the